Hello guys, and today we're going to be talking about the SL grinding capability of the F-15E, especially when you compare it to the Su-34, which was my previous video. And in that video, I got a whole lot of comments saying that the best SL grinder is actually the F-15E. So I thought, well, I'll put it to the test. I mean, I already own it, let's give it a whirl. And honestly, the results were surprising, and I actually found that the best payload is one that nobody uses. Also, all of this applies to the Israeli F-15I Ra'am, I think that's how you say it, as it's basically identical in-game. As always, the Discord is linked below. Our in-game squadron is recruiting, so you can join through the Discord quite easily. Don't forget to smash that like and subscribe, and we'll get into the video. Now, while the F-15E looks quite similar to earlier F-15s, it really isn't. While the most obvious changes are a second crew member, extra hard points, and more powerful engines, as well as those conforming fuel tanks, it also features an overall strengthened fuselage to cope with that extra thrust and weight, as well as an improved radar and more advanced countermeasures and electronic warfare, along with many other internal upgrades. It first flew nearly 15 years after the base F-15, so you should be able to see there's quite a big gap there. And it saw its combat debut in the First Gulf War in 1991, in which the F-15E actually scored an air-to-air kill on a Mi-24 helicopter by scoring a direct hit with a GBU-10 paveway guided bomb. So what about in-game? Well, we'll start off with the negatives and we'll end up with the positives. So for base bombing, at least straight up, it's going to be a W for the Su-34, because the JDAM-ER is just way slower. It has to be released while you're going subsonic, which means it's going to take a lot longer for it to reach its destination when compared to something like the Grom. And this is going to be a running theme. You're also only able to destroy 2 bases, which is kind of another L for the F-15. On the plus side though, your entire loadout is flying bombs, and it feels like they fly further than the Soviet equivalents. Maybe this is just me imagining things, but that's how it feels to me. So how do you play it? Well, when you spawn in, climb out in Afterburner and hold Mach 1. When you reach 10,000 feet or 3 kilometers, you can level out and cut your throttle. Then just drop 2 GBU-64s and 1 GBU-62 on each base. And then on top of that, with all loadouts, you're also going to be able to carry a minimum of 4 AMRAAMs. So you have a choice of either firing them off immediately, or you can go to Afterburner and continue your climb out and play like a fighter, which I'll cover in a later section. Obviously, you will also have the option to RTB, which again will be covered in a later section. But the next role I want to highlight, which is kind of another L, is the carrier killer role, which is quite good on the Su-34. Now, this shown here is the best loadout, and you're absolutely going to have enough ordnance to kill a carrier. I mean, even with this loadout, I don't take as many bombs as I could because you just don't need them and all that extra weight. The problem is just the amount of time that it takes. Now, you can launch off those pair of AGM-130s at quite some range, and they have a rocket booster, so they'll go quite far. And then you can drop your 1 laser-guided bomb, allowing you to have 3 munitions in the air at the same time. The problem is that you have to maintain your lays, and the Soviet equivalent can have 7 munitions in the air simultaneously because they're all TV guided. The F-15 really struggles when it comes to TV guided ordnance. You can only carry the Mavericks and the AGM-130s. I mean, those are the 2 viable options at least. All the other pylons in the middle can only take laser guided bombs at best, so it can be more difficult to deal with moving targets. This means you have to orbit the target, dropping laser guided bombs, and you just don't really have the time or the space to do this at top tier. Every time I was either hunted down or the game just ended before the carrier died. Except for one time, which is this very strange footage you're watching at the moment, as you'll see. People might mention the Mavericks, and I did try those, but with a payload of just 50 kilograms, it's not really enough to make a dent in a carrier. The next loadout I tried was by far the most commented on the previous video, and I hate to say it, but it's just not that good. The problem with the GBU-39 small diameter bomb is the absolutely minuscule payload at just 26 kilograms. This is basically the same as those tiny 100-pounder World War II bombs, and it basically requires you to hit the target dead on. This makes it especially bad on those maps that only have armored targets for you to destroy too. Is it viable? Yeah, of course. It requires you to place your marker with significantly more precision, or put yourself in significantly more danger to use the targeting pod and then accurately drop them using the targeting pod. Again, the same reason I don't take the Mavericks is their relatively short range, especially when compared to GPS-guided bombs. And ideally, I'd like none of these missions to be, well, a one-way journey. So what's the solution? Our old friend, the GBU-64. From a Soviet perspective, or from someone who's played the Soviet tree, this is like an unholy fusion of the UPAB and the Grom in one munition. It does have a slightly smaller payload than the UPAB, but it has a much larger payload than the Grom, and it also shares the wings with the Grom as well. And the F-15E can carry 7 of these things. And when you place these between the bunker and the SPAA, you can often get 2 to 3 targets per cluster, meaning that using these is actually much, much faster than using the small diameter bomb. Now, if you're very good with the GBU-39, it might work out to be slightly better. But in my opinion, the speed and ease of use wins it out for me with the 2,000-pounder. They're also much better on those maps that only have armored targets due to the bigger blast radius. As with the small diameter bomb, I tried it, but I got so many hits. You need to get direct hits, which means you need to use the targeting pod and you need to be in range. That is a very hot place to be, especially with the amount of Fox 3s flying around at the BR that you're at. But in short, if you pop one of those unstoppable wagers, regardless of which of these methods you use, as long as you're, fairly competent at it, you can make crazy SL doing this. So you've dropped your munitions and it's time to RTB. What now? Generally speaking, if you're going out with air-to-ground munitions, I would choose the closer base. This is because all of your munitions, like the vast majority, have to be released below Mach 1, and you want them to actually reach their targets before the game ends, ideally. If that's the case, just rinse and repeat. Now, if you do want to do air-to-air, I'd recommend the base that's further away that's defended. That gives you more time to climb out due to the playstyle of the F-15, which I'll cover in the fighter section, starting now. Now, everybody knows that the F-15 absolutely crushes the Su-34 in terms of fighter performance, but I'll drop some tips here for playing it here too. Now remember, your strength is at high altitude with BVR combat, beyond visual range, so really you should stick to it. And it's the same reason that you want to use the airfield that's further away if you're coming back for air-to-air. It just lets you have time to climb out and build the speed that you need to be effective. Now, the F-15 is not the fastest plane in the game, but overall, you might as well be, because you possess the combination of high top speeds and amazing acceleration. And most of the other planes that have a higher top speed, it's usually only the case at high altitude, and it usually takes a very long time to build that speed up. Think of like the F-111F, for example. And the energy assist that you give to those AMRAAM C5s when you launch them going nearly at Mach 2 is insane. They're already some of the best Fox 3 missiles in the game. With that huge assist on top, yeah, they become insanely deadly. Really, what I'm trying to say is play to your strengths. And also, once you've fired your missiles, if you simply do a 180 and fly away, the vast majority of missiles aren't going to be able to even catch you if you maintain your speed. In addition, if you do feel like you need to notch, you can also take 200 pops of chaff or so. So really, you shouldn't have too much issue doing that either. But in contrast to those strengths that you have at high speed and high altitude, you have significant disadvantages at low altitude. Multipathing is always going to be tricky in the F-15 because you compress quite hard when you're going fast, and obviously you're going to be at full afterburner and you probably will be compressing. It makes it harder to hug the terrain and harder to multipath because of that. And even with the funny button maneuver mode, it won't really do anything if you're going at like Mach 1.2 because you're compressing anyway. You'll be forced down onto the deck to multipath, and honestly, you're doomed. If someone fires an IR missile at you from behind and you're multipathing at the same time, your flares are fired straight down. And yeah, that means the missile probably isn't going to see the flares and you're going to eat it up your tailpipe. Like, you'll inherently just be forced into bad situations by necessity if you play at those altitudes. So don't let anybody within 10 kilometers if you can help it. You're a sniper, just don't play up close. So that kind of rounds it up. Overall, I would say still that the Su-34 is better for two main reasons. The first is that I feel like it offers more flexibility, and the second is its lower BR and better matchmaking. At the end of the day, there are a lot of premiums at 12.7 and you get dragged down quite a lot. Also, it's much more likely you're going to run into allies doing the same thing as you when you're in the F-15. But either way, that's just my opinion, and the F-15E is more than capable of fulfilling this role. I just personally feel like the Su-34 edges it out. But again, just my opinion, so thank you for coming, guys. Don't forget to check out the Discord, smash like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.